Namaskar, Jai Guru. A very warm welcome to all of you who are here at Ranchi participating in the Sadhana Sangam here. And a very warm welcome to all the devotees who are joining us through the live stream. So let us start today's topic. The topic for today's satsang is peace and prosperity through Kriya Yoga. Now, all of us desire peace and prosperity. Nobody can deny that. But why is it that? Why do we crave for that? Not that peace itself is very entertaining, and there is no guarantee that material prosperity can bring us happiness. However, both of these conditions, that means some amount of peace and some amount of prosperity, both of them are essential conditions for us to experience joy. Without peace, we cannot experience joy. And without all our physical needs being met, we cannot sustain joy. So, what we really want, what we are really seeking, is not peace and prosperity in itself, but the joy they bring to us. So, all of us are actually seeking joy. And we're all also seeking love. Nobody can deny that. Each one of us craves for love. So, for every human being, for every soul, these are the two motivating factors, motivating forces which impel us to do all kinds of actions. We all know, in a very broad sense, what is meant by joy. We have all experienced joy in some form or the other. We have all experienced love in some form or the other. But can we describe it? We cannot put it into words because they are beyond the power of words. They are beyond description. They can only be felt within through the faculty of our souls, because both love and joy are the qualities, are the expressions, are the qualities, not of our body, not of our mind, but of our soul. And soul qualities can only be experienced, they cannot be described. And because they are so subtle, they are the fundamental needs of our existence, both joy and love. But because they're so subtle, we don't know where to find them. Our saints tell us that most of us, most of mankind, tries to find joy, tries to find love through the external world, through our material possessions, personal relationships, name, fame, etc. However, the saints also tell us, in fact, they warn us that these external factors are not the true sources of love or true sources of joy. And where are they to be found? They also give that answer. They don't leave this as a mystery. They also answer the question they raise. Where do we find true love? Where do you find true joy? What is the source of these two qualities? And they say it is none other than the Supreme Lord, the Spirit. And that Spirit, that Supreme Lord, is within each one of us as the soul. The soul within us is a spark of that cosmic fire, which is the Supreme Lord. So all of us are, in essence, made from spirit. And since the predominant qualities of spirit are love and joy, it is only natural that we all seek love and joy, because we all want to be in our own true nature. But we don't know how to get there. And that is the whole difficulty. Sadly, majority of us settle for the superficial joys and the superficial love that this world has to offer. And that is because very few of us have experienced true joy. And we think we experienced true joy when we achieve something great, or when uh, a very happy experience comes into our life. But we do not know what is causeless joy. That means joy which springs of its own without any cause. And similarly, we think we have got true love when we find somebody who understands us, who loves us, who seems to care for us. But we forget that behind the love which is being expressed by that person, there is actually a bigger source. And that source of infinite love or unconditional love is that same Supreme Lord or the Spirit. So Guruji, Paramahansa Yoganandaji explains this in this manner. He says, most people think that money will bring happiness, but they have no correct standard of comparison. They have never explored the possibilities of soul happiness. All the joys they know about are physical, material, and mental joys. Of the blissful soul realm, they know nothing. So here Guruji is telling us that don't be fooled by just this external world and whatever it has to offer. Don't limit your seeking, don't limit your experiences just to this physical world. There is much, much more beyond this physical realm. And the only reason why we don't know about it is because we have no experience. So there is no standard for comparison. And explaining the liberating power of the divine joy, once we experience it, Guruji writes, the joy of God communion, once tasted, is more tempting than all mundane temptations. Once tasted. So that is essential. We need to taste it at least once in our life. He says, if man tempts himself with that true pleasure, then the temptation of the senses will wane. So, in comparison with the love and joy we can find in God, these material joys and love, human relationships, they are very pale. There is no comparison. Because God is a supremely charming experience. And that is why, one of the names for Lord Krishna is Mohan. Mohan means one who is very attractive, one who is a great charmer. So God is the greatest charmer. If only we know, if you only get introduced to him, we realize that nothing and nobody can charm us, can entertain us, can love us more than him. He says, because God is a supremely charming experience, it is only when man does not have that comparison that evil temptation has power. Would anyone eat rotten cheese if he had good cheese? Would anyone prefer suffering to joy? It's obvious. The answer is obvious. No. Man yields to temptation because of the delusion that it will bring happiness. So, that is the delusion we should understand first intellectually. That temptation, that means all the pleasures that are offered by this external world, they promise happiness. But ultimately, unless we understand their true nature, they will only end in suffering, they only end in misery. And here, Guruji very eloquently describes how forgetful we are, the spiritual forgetfulness. He says, the truth is, We have all become like the proverbial prodigal son. In the Bible, there's a story about a son who is not happy at home, and he runs away from home, even though he's he has everything at home. He's a very rich. He comes from a rich family, and then the story goes that eventually the son realizes his mistake and he comes back. So that is the story of the prodigal son. So Guruji says that story is a symbolic story where that prodigal son, or the son, that disobedient son who ran away from home, that is all of us, the errant souls who have forgotten God, who have wandered away from our true home, who have run away from the heaven which God wants us to have. Guruji says, we have wandered away into the dark lanes of bad habits and have forgotten how to keep the joy of God centered in our hearts. So that is the key. So uh, we have forgotten that our true nature is love and joy. We don't have to go anywhere. We already have it. But we have forgotten the true nature, and we are looking for it, seeking it in this outside world. So essentially, what Guruji and all the saints are telling us is that we are bliss, we are joy, we are joy incarnate. Only we have forgotten that. We have wandered away from that state of perpetual joy. So what happens when, nature abhors vacuum, they say. Nature does not like vacuum. So when we have forgotten the joy, something else will come and fill our consciousness in place of that primal joy. And what fills our thoughts, our consciousness in the absence of the true joy is Maya, is all the pleasures, all the sense pleasures of this world. So, and therein is the difficulty. So, right now, in the normal state of our consciousness, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, they're all directed towards the world because we know nothing different. We have no comparison. And Guruji explains this. He says, when the soul is not in its natural state, it puts on the garb of moods born of human feelings. So we all know. See, the saints say, Guruji says, we are bliss, we are joy. But when we wake up in the morning and look at our face in the mirrors, does it look like a face filled with joy? It is more a face which is careworn, lots of worries, tensions, and thinking of the day ahead and all the difficulties we may have to face. So hardly a face of bliss, isn't it? And reason is because once we have moved away from that state of joy, then the soul puts on the mask of feelings and the moods which are generated by those feelings. So that is why we wake up grumpy, angry, disappointed, anxious. But it's not us. That is not us. So next time when you wake up and you feel anxious, you feel apprehensive or angry or sad, look at yourself in the mirror, say, that is not me. I am bliss. I am joy. And a mere affirmation of the truth will change your state of consciousness. Try it out and see. Affirm whenever you feel sad, whenever you feel anxious, stop for a moment and just affirm, I am bliss, I am joy, I am bliss, I am joy. So, repetition of statements of truth, that is affirmation. And they can bring us back to what is the reality. So, the good news is we don't have to import joy from outside. We don't have to earn it. We don't have to, get it from outside. It's already there within. All we have to do is remove the dirt, the mud, the grime that has collected over that joyous soul. So it is not a very difficult task once we look at it that way, isn't it? So hold on to that. I don't have to look outside for joy. All that joy is within me, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be discovered. This world keeps us deluded. You know, there was a person was having severe cold. His nose was blocked, running nose. He was having fever. So he went to a doctor and said, "Doctor, I'm having this cold. Uh, please, treat me." So the doctor said, "Okay, go back home, bathe in cold water, and stand outside in the cold, and do this for 3 days, and then come back to me." So he says, "But doctor, will this cure me?" He says, "No, it won't cure you, but your cold will become pneumonia, and I know how to treat that. I don't know how to treat the common cold." So this is exactly what the world tells us. I'm feeling sorrowful. I'm feeling sad. Can you give me something? Oh yes. No, get more into Maya, more into delusion, more into external pleasures. This will cure you. Will that cure us? It won't. It will make us even more sick. And the great delusion is we think we are okay. We don't realize that as compared to our pristine nature, the real nature, we are sick when we are clouded by Maya. So that is the delusion. So these external pleasures, the sense pleasures, they promise us happiness, but usually they end in misery. Both human, the material joys and human love. There's nothing wrong with true human love because it is a reflection of God's love. But when that love becomes attachment, when we forget that the love we are receiving from another person is not coming from that body, but it is coming from his soul or her soul, which is again a spark of the divine. When we forget that, attachment to another physical form creates a lot of sorrow when that loved form disappears, which it will today or tomorrow. So, misery and sorrow are inbuilt in this world because in a world where everything is changing, where everything is evanescent, temporary, how can we expect permanent joy and permanent love? Not possible. Not possible. So that is what we have to remember. Similarly, another story, a person who was troubled by all the worries of this world. He was sick of this world, so he went to a sage and told him, "Sir, you roam the Himalayas, all those beautiful, quiet, solitary places. Surely there must be some place which is free from all worries, all troubles, where I can just, retire from this world and enjoy the rest of my life in complete peace and joy." And the sage said, "Oh, yeah, I know such a place. In fact, I can take you there. Not difficult." So the man was very excited. He said, "Then please take me." He said, "Okay, you come tomorrow morning. We will go on this journey." So the next morning, the man comes all ready for the journey. And so the saint takes him out of the city to a place, and they stop at a desolate place. And he says, "Sir, where have you brought me? This is the cremation ground of the city." He said, "Yes, this is the place where man can find eternal peace. Nowhere else." So what he's trying to say is as long as we are in this body, even if we escape to the Himalayas, our worries will follow us. If it is not worries of the mind, it will be worries about the body or attachment. So until we change that, we are not going to have perpetual happiness. And that is why in the Gita, Bhagavan Krishna encourages Arjuna. He says, "Get away from my ocean of suffering and misery." So this world is that ocean of suffering and misery. Well, I mean, I'm not trying to paint a pessimistic picture, but again, a sense of comparison. Compared to the tremendous joy we feel when we experience our own soul or the divinity within us. Compared to that, this external worldly consciousness is painful, is miserable. But until we have that comparison, yes, all this seems very joyous. So always remember that. Guruji said, be in the world but not of it. That means, what a beautiful statement. Be in the world. We have to be in the world. We are not, I mean, the saints are not telling us to end our human life before our time is due. They are never saying that. We have to live as long as we have to. But while we are in this world, nothing forces us to become a part of it. That means let not our consciousness get caught in this world and all the worries that this world, is associated with. So we can live in the world, but not become part of it, not become involved in its troubles and worries. We can remain like an observer and watch all of this creation, all of this worldly activities as a drama, as a movie. And that analogy Guruji gives many times, that this world is a movie. Enjoy it like that. So don't get attached to that, because in the ultimate sense, this world has no reality. One day we all have to move away from here. And that is the purpose and the secret power of the science of Kriya Yoga. It allows us to do that. It allows us to remain in the world, but gradually get detached from it, move away from it internally. That is the secret we have to understand. And one of the great examples we find of how powerful this Kriya can be is the life of none other than the second president of this organization, Rajarshi Janakanandaji. You know, as many of you know, before Rajarshi Janakanandaji met Guruji, he was James Lynn, a self-made millionaire living in Kansas City, USA. And he had become a millionaire at a very young age. He had name, fame, everything. But in his own in his own words, he was restless and anxious. He couldn't sit still, let alone meditate. That was his state. Can you imagine? And he says, I was a totally frustrated man. I had thought money could give me happiness, but nothing seemed to satisfy me. I lived in a state of nervousness, a state of strain, an inward state of uncertainty. So these are his words. And he was desperately looking for peace of mind. And during his search, he attended a lecture by Paramahansa Yoganandaji in Kansas City. And within a few minutes of that satsang, his restlessness vanished. He found that his mind had become very peaceful and he was able to sit still. And he experienced wonderful peace, bliss, and an expansion of consciousness for the first time in this life. He even had a taste of samadhi, Guruji says. But why did this happen? Because Rajarshi Janakanandaji was a great yogi from previous lives. And through the incarnations, he had collected a lot of good spiritual karma. As Guruji says, he had gathered the firewood of good spiritual karma. And at the first meeting with his Guru, that gathered firewood caught fire and he experienced that great bliss of God. And on that very day, Guruji says Rashi Janakananji had a 6-hour meditation with Guruji. So a man who could hardly sit still, he went into a state of deep peace and calm and could sit still for 6 hours. So that is the power of a Guru's blessing and also the power of Kriya Yoga. So what does this example tell us, this story tell us? It tells us two things. One, external success, no matter how brilliant, cannot give us true happiness. Rather, the reverse is true. Along with success comes anxiety, troubles, worries on how to keep that success going. And that was what was happening in Rajarshi's life. And second, real peace, real joy can be experienced only through meditation, nowhere else. After having this experience of deep inner joy, Rajshri Janakanandaji went back to Kansas City. Went back to his usual work. But Guruji made him promise one thing. He said, no matter how busy you are, please don't give up meditation. Be regular in your meditation. And Janakanandaji promised that. So to keep up his promise, every day Janakanandaji would meditate. And things were not easy for him. I mean, he was a millionaire. He had so many meetings. There were so many stakeholders. He had so many business interests. Plus, his family life was also not very conducive for meditation. So how did he manage? He would leave his home early, come to his office, lock his door, and meditate till 10 a.m. Nobody would know. And the only message his secretary was told to give was, he is in conference. People didn't know that he was in conference with God. But people thought, okay, every day until 10, he has some private conference with somebody, and only then he's available. So the point is this: if we are serious in our sadhana, we will find time. Where there is a will, there is time for sadhana. So that is a message we need to take from this beautiful example of a spiritual life. You see, why meditation is needed? The reason is our mind is like milk, and milk has both, butter and water mixed together in such a way that you can't separate it. So it is all diluted. But when that milk is churned and churned and churned, butter forms. Once the butter floats to the top of the milk, then no matter how much water is added into it, the butter does not go back and mix with the milk. It remains afloat. So that's a beautiful example, very simple example to understand how meditation helps us. We are churning our consciousness in this meditation. And through the churning, through the process of meditation, we are able to separate out the butter of peace and joy. And then that remains afloat. And when we have that butter, then if we go out into the world and mix with people, face any problem, that butter remains afloat. That means no matter what the outer conditions, inwardly we are joyous. It is a wonderful state, and all of us experience that once in a while when we have had deep meditations, when everything is going well. No matter how busy we may be, we feel that within there is always an undercurrent of joy, an undercurrent of peace. Nothing is disturbing us. And that is possible having this kind of a dual existence where inwardly you are unruffled, externally you are fully active. That is how a yogi lives. And that is possible by this daily sadhana where we churn the butter and we are able to separate it from the milk of our consciousness. And that constant joy we feel when we meditate regularly, that constant peace we can anchor ourselves in, what is that? That is the soul. That is the presence of the divine within us. That is God's presence within us. So God is not somewhere far away. He's right within us. And we experience that in meditation when we experience this state of inner joy at all times, under all conditions. And this state of inner joy, when it becomes permanent, that means nothing can ruffle us, that state is called the state of sthita pragya. That means a state of steady wisdom. That means if a person who is anchored in that state, his wisdom never wavers. That means he's never overwhelmed by this world or the worries this world can throw at us. And all of us, by our daily sadhana, that is where we are moving, that is where we are going, that is the goal, to reach that state of sthita prajna. And Bhagavad Gita beautifully describes this state. Bhagavan Krishna describes this state. He says, Yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadhikam tata yasmin sthitavana dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. Meaning, the state that once found, the yogi considers as the treasure beyond all other treasures. Anchored therein, he is immune to even the mightiest grief. So, just to realize or accept that this is possible. That means one day, no matter today, tomorrow, 10, 50 years from now, we can all achieve that state, which once we get it, nothing can ruffle us. That state of joy will remain permanently. Isn't that worth struggling? Isn't that worth fighting for? So that is what we are trying to achieve, the state of sthit pragya. And we will get there. That is the Guru's promise. All of us, all of us who are even making a little bit of effort, we will eventually reach that state of sthit pragya. We should not doubt that. And once we reach that state, what is the personality of such an individual? How does he behave? Again, the Gita gives a beautiful description of all those qualities in chapter 12. I will only quote one shloka here. Yona hrishyati na dvesti na shochati na kangshati shubha shubha parityagi bhaktimanya same priyah. Means he who feels neither rejoicing nor loathing toward the glad nor the sad, who is free from grief and craving, who has banished the relative consciousness of good and evil, and who is intently devout, he is dear to me. So a person who has reached the state of sthita prajna, who is a real devotee of the Lord, a real bhakta, he is above these dualities, love and hate, happiness and sadness, good and evil. It is not that that person stops understanding the difference between good and evil. He understands and follows the ways of the good, but he is neither affected by good nor affected by evil. He is above both. That is what it means. He is not affected by them. So, in in a nutshell, what the saints are telling us is the cause of suffering is our desire, our desires and our attachments. Attachments are also a form of desire. When our desires are not satisfied, then we suffer. And when somebody we love, he or she is taken away, we suffer immeasurable grief. So that is the reason for our suffering, our attachments and desires. Why is that? Now let us dive deeper into this subject. Why is it? What is the psychology behind it? Why is it that we get attached? Why and what is the source of these desires? Of course, one we have said, we have moved away from our state of inner joy, and there is a vacuum, and so the world fills that vacuum. But then it also creates a habit of wanting this material world, wanting these material pleasures. And that perpetuates this vacuum, that perpetuates this delusion. And the reason is we are caught in our body consciousness, we are caught in our sense consciousness. So these are the traps. If only we can detach our consciousness from our body, from our senses, then we can rise above desires. We can cut these desires, because all the cravings for desires are associated with body consciousness. as long as we think we are this body, as long as we think we are these senses. That is the great secret our saints discovered. So, if that is the reason, is there a way to rise above this body consciousness? Can we get away from this? And that is the science of Kriya Yoga. The great secret, the great truth they discovered through their experiments, spiritual experiments, is where our energy is, there is our consciousness. It's a great statement. Wherever our energy is focused, our consciousness also follows suit. It follows the energy. And in the normal waking consciousness, where is our energy? It is in the body, it is in the senses. So it is only natural that we think we are this body made of muscles and bones and organs and these five senses. And we are fully identified with these five senses. And we are fully engrossed in all the impulses these five senses are bringing into our consciousness, into our brain, and we react to them. And we think that this is it. This is the whole world. There's nothing beyond. But that is not so. So, and what is this energy inside? Our saints tell us that this energy which activates this body, it is not just a physical energy which is being generated from the food we eat. In fact, there is an invisible electricity within, which is like a cord, which is like a rope, which is tying our consciousness, which is tying our soul to this body, and makes the soul think that I am this body. And what is that cord? What is that rope? That is the prana shakti or life force. So this was the great discovery of the yogis, that there is a reason why the soul becomes deluded to think that this is the body. It is because it is tied very tightly, fully identified through the prana which is flowing into the body. So, without going into details, the physical body we see is not the only body the soul is covered with. There is a causal body and there's an astral body. And the astral body is the energy body. Through the prana, the astral body keeps this physical body alive and makes the soul think that I am the physical body. At the time of death, when the life force retires from the physical body disintegrates. And all the elements, they get merged back into the Panchabhutas, into the five elements. So the only reason the body is kept alive is the life force which is inside the body. In itself, the body is not alive. It is the life force which keeps the physical body alive. We have to remember that. And as long as this life force is engaged with the body, we identify ourselves with the physical body, and all the suffering, all the misery associated with this body, we feel that it's real, that it is happening to us. Whereas the soul is above all this. The soul is not affected by this. That is what our saints tell us. And how do we know this? We all experience this during the state of sleep. What happens during the state of sleep? We forget our body consciousness. We are not aware of the body. We are not aware of the senses. Even if somebody is talking next to us or there's a song playing outside, if we are in deep sleep, we are not aware. But the ear is still there, it is still functioning. So what happened? Apparently, during the state of sleep, our prana partially withdraws back into the astral body. Just like we have a physical body and a physical spine, the astral body also has an astral spine. And that astral spine, which is an energy channel, a nadi, it is called the Sushumna Nadi. That is the principal Nadi of the astral body. So during the state of sleep, there's a partial withdrawal of the energy into Sushumna. without our own effort, just by the phenomenon of sleep. And our senses become partially non-functional. So what it shows us is that there can be a state when the senses are there, but they are not active. So the saints probed more into the phenomenon of sleep, and they thought to themselves, can we work on this? Can we reproduce that state of sleep? That means, can we do something by which the senses become inactive without entering into a state of sleep? And that is the science of yoga, which ultimately leads us to the state of pratyahar, where the energy is fully withdrawn from all the senses, all the bodily parts. And though we are fully awake, fully conscious, we are not conscious of the body, we are conscious of the soul which is within this body. And that is a state of pratyahara and beyond. So that is what the science of Kriya Yoga teaches. How do we disengage? How do we disconnect this prana from the physical body and take it back into the Sushumna Nadi, into the astral spine? That is what Kriya Yoga is all about. At the time of birth, when the soul enters the embryo, then gradually the life force and our consciousness, which is actually in the Sahasrara, the thousand petal lotus of the brain, the astral brain, it descends, so to speak. That means it gradually enters into the physical realm. And what is the path it takes to get into the physical realm? That path is the path of the astral spine, the Sushumna. And as the consciousness, as the soul descends through the Sushumna, it creates the physical body and starts identifying itself with that. And our yogis found that along this path of Sushumna, the astral spine, there are points which are energy centers where energy is concentrated, the life energy, the prana. And those energy centers are called chakra. So, as you all know, we have 6 chakras starting from the tailbone to here: Muladhar, Swadhisthana, Manipur, Anahat, Vichuddha, Agya, and Kutastha. So Agya and Kutastha are one, the positive and negative. So like that, all the 6 energy centers which are along the Sushumna spine, Sushumna Nadi, they have a positive and a negative pole. So together, they're actually 12 centers. Now, why I'm explaining this? Because it tells us how Kriya Yoga works. So what do we do in Kriya Yoga? It is a secret technique, so we cannot reveal everything here. It is very confidential. It is transmitted from the guru to the disciple through the Guru Shishya Parampara or through qualified sannyasis. But the entire theory is given in Guruji's book, Autobiography of a Yogi, in the chapter The Science of Kriya Yoga. So I would encourage all of you, if you have not already done so, to go and read that chapter. Everything is explained there. So Guruji, to summarize that the whole chapter, Guruji tells us that what happens in Kriya is that it is a technique by which we revolve the life energy in the astral spine, in the Sushumna. And by doing so, our consciousness, our willpower, our mind, they travel in the spine. And when they do that, the life force, it crosses these 6 chakras, the positive, negative poles on its on in that cycle. And when it is doing that, it completes the revolution. That is one kriya. And that takes us spiritually forward. It advances our spiritual progress. How does it do it? There is a great metaphysical truth behind it. Just like we are one human being, Similarly, just like there is a physical man, that means the human body, similarly, there is a cosmic man in the universe. And that cosmic man is the 12 zodiacs. Those who know astrology will understand this better. What are the zodiacs? They are the collection of stars, constellations. And what happens when the earth revolves around the sun? It passes through these 12 constellations, the 12 zodiac signs. The Aries, the Taurus, the Gemini, these are the zodiac signs. So our rishis found that by merely being in the physical body, having a physical body and living on this earth, if you are able to live without the body becoming diseased and without breaking God's laws, just by living as a human being, every year we are advancing spiritually. And that happens because as the earth revolves through these 12 zodiacs, there is something happening in our body through the energies from these stars, and there is a very subtle upward evolution of our consciousness. So every year we are advancing a little bit, even without any effort. And the same thing we are doing through Kriya. Just like the cosmic man, the physical man also has the 12 zodiacs in his astral spine, those chakras, positive and negative poles. So when the life energy is revolved around those energy centers, those chakras, it is similar to Earth revolving around the sun. And that is why one revolution of the Kriya breath is equal to 1 year in human terms. And one Kriya usually takes about half a minute. So in half a minute, a Kriya yogi, a person who is practicing Kriya, advances spiritually by 1 year. So that is why Kriya is a spiritual shortcut. It hastens your spiritual evolution very fast, makes it very fast. So that is how the Kriya works. Now, when we are able to do this, then gradually we are able to raise our consciousness from the physical body into the Sushumna Nadi, and we experience the higher levels of consciousness, which we are not even aware of right now. So when we are able to experience those higher states of consciousness, what is the change that is taking place within us? Two things become very prominent. One, that undercurrent of peace and joy, which I talked about, which all yogis can experience and will experience at some point in their life. So they will experience that, an undercurrent of joy and peace that remains through all the happy and sad experiences of their life. They are inside, they are unruffled. That is one effect of Kriya. And second is, in the higher states of consciousness, our intuition, which is our sixth sense, that becomes heightened, that becomes more active. And what is the advantage of that? Through intuition, we are able to remain in tune with God's laws, with God's wishes. And because of that attunement, we take right decisions in all circumstances. So we feel the peace and joy within at all times, and our intuition becomes awakened, which helps us in solving our day to day problems. So that is the great practical advantage of practicing Kriya. And this Kriya science is not something new, it is an ancient science, but it got lost during the Kali Yuga, the Dark Age. And it was revived again in 1861 by Mahavatar Babaji when he met Lahari Mahashaya and gave him Diksha. And then he told Lahari Mahashaya, spread this science, give this to all sincere God seekers. And that is what he did. And through Lahari Mahashaya, and then through our line of gurus, and through this organization, today we are able to get the Kriya. Many of you received the Kriya yesterday in the Kriya initiation ceremony. So that is the history of this Kriya. And we come to know that it is an ancient science because Bhagwan Krishna mentions this technique in the Gita, though it is given very cryptically. Uh, the shloka is apane juhvati pranam prane panam tatha pare pranapana gati rudhva pranayama prayana. So the explanation is that other devotees offer as sacrifice the incoming breath of prana in the outgoing breath of apana, in the outgoing breath of apana, in the incoming breath of prana, thus arresting the cause of inhalation and exhalation, the intense practice of pranayama. When you read this, you don't really understand how can you offer prana into apana and apana into prana. So that technique has to be learned from a guru or by a sannyasi who is qualified. So this is what essentially we do in Kriya Yoga. So as I said, when we practice this technique, the greatest change we find in ourselves is that constant feeling of peace, joy, and a sense of purity, a sense of divinity within us. And you know that you have touched the divine, you have touched God. Guruji very beautifully says, by practicing yoga, you will know God and you will know that you know God. So there is no uncertainty left, there is no ambiguity left. All our doubts are answered. That is why Guruji says, even if you don't believe in the existence of God, if you sincerely practice Kriya, you will one day realize the existence of God. You don't need any external proof because you have experienced God yourself. So that is the beauty of Kriya Yoga. Granalini Mataji says, the goal of the science of Kriya Yoga is not the development of psychic powers, nor the ability necessarily to create great successes in this world. It is to reawaken the sleeping image of the divine within. So that is what we are here for. That is the purpose of Kriya, to awaken the sleeping divinity within each one of us. So when we practice Kriya, the changes which happen, one, as I said, our desires become spiritualized. As we practice Kriya, we realize that we are no longer attracted to these material pleasures. We want more and more to remain in seclusion. We want to meditate more and more because we enjoy doing that. Our desires become more spiritual. We want to hear more about God. We want to remain in the company of God loving people. So our personality changes, it becomes more spiritual without any effort. That is the beauty. Without any effort on our part, gradually our habits change, our personality changes. That is one change which happens. Our bad habits disappear. Those who were into smoking and drinking, those habits just drop away naturally, again without much effort. I have heard many devotees tell me that this is what happened in their lives. They used to smoke, they used to drink, then they started practicing Kriya. Those habits vanished. I mean, what a great blessing it is. If for nothing else, Kriya should be, we should be grateful for that we can change our bad habits so easily. And our intuition awakens, we receive the inner guidance. There is always an inner assurance. Just a couple of days ago, one of our sannyasis was traveling in the night from one place in India to another, and as you know, it's not very safe. So I was a little concerned. So I called up our Swamiji and said, Swamiji, I'm a little concerned that you're having to travel alone in the night. And you know what he said? I am never alone. My gurus are with me. So that, and it is not a casual statement. It is not a statement, emotional or a sentimental statement. It is something a true disciple feels, that he's never alone. That sense of reassurance, that sense of power within, that divine mother is with me, God is with me. And it is a real experience, a real, something which you actually feel. So that is the benefit of Kriya. Having the divine assurance you are taken care of. No matter what happens, there is nothing to worry about. So, what a great blessing it is to have that kind of an assurance. Okay. One thing we have to realize is to receive Kriya, we have to prepare our body and mind. And that is what is taught in the initial lessons. You see, Guruji's teachings, this Kriya Yoga science, he has given to us in the form of printed lessons. And those lessons, before they take us to the stage where we can receive Kriya, those lessons give us very detailed instructions on how we can prepare our body and mind so that we can practice that high technique. Before we are ready to practice the Kriya, we have to train our body and mind to practice it. And that is why a preliminary period of meditation and practicing some basic techniques is required. So once we do that and our body and mind is ready, then we receive Diksha. And that Diksha is given through Guru Shishya Parampara, through a qualified sannyasi. And that is very important because Guruji says, for a disciple, 25% is his effort, 25% is the effort of the Guru, and 50% is the grace of God. So, Guru's blessings and God's blessings are very much important for a disciple. So, we have to follow the law, whatever the path that has been given by Guru, we have to follow that. We have to follow the law and we have to also develop love for God. So, law and love, when both combine, then success is guaranteed. So, that in essence is the science of Kriya Yoga. Okay. All right. So, I think we have reached the end of our talk here. So, just to summarize a few points, what are the things you need to take home? Point number one, permanent peace and prosperity cannot be found in this world. Remember that. It is impractical to expect that from this changing world. They can be found only in our soul, which is within us, not in the outside world. Prosperity comes when we act from a higher state of consciousness, because then we are working from a state of intuition and we take the right decisions. Another great truth to remember is we suffer because of our identity with our body. And why are we identified with the body? Because where our energy is, there is our consciousness. So, because most of the time our energy is in the body, we think we are the body. How to solve this problem? Withdraw the energy from the body. And how to do that? Kriya Yoga. Through Kriya Yoga, we are able to withdraw the prana from the body into the astral spine, into the higher states of consciousness. And Kriya Yoga is an ancient science which can be practiced by everyone, whether young, old, man, woman, any caste, any religion. But it has to be followed according to the law as given by the gurus. Both law and love are required to reach God. So that is, those are the points. If you remember, then we have achieved today's purpose. Before we end, I have some good news. YSS has released this book, Solving the Mysteries of Life. And this is the fourth in the collection of talks, Solving the Mystery of Life. You know, we have Man's Eternal Quest, Journey to Self-Realization, Divine Romance, and now this book, Solving the Mystery of Life. And this book is now available in paperback, hardcover. This edition, which we see, is the hardcover edition. And we have this in paperback edition and also as an ebook. So you can purchase any of this, it is now available online at our ashrams, at our kendras. This book has already been released by our international headquarters, SRF. And at the time of the release, Swami Chidanandaji said, it is a real milestone in the progress of our Guru's worldwide mission. So it is a very important publication. So I would definitely encourage all of you to, procure it and read it. So that is a very good news for all of us. And that is all for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Jai Guru.